An elderly Italian man went to his local church for confession. When the priest opened the screen, the old man said, "Father, during World War II, a beautiful Jewish woman from our neighborhood came to my door. She was terrified and begged me to hide her from the Nazis. So I hid her in my attic." The priest replied gently, "My son, that was a brave and compassionate act. There is nothing to confess there." The man hesitated. "There's more, Father. She showed her gratitude by becoming very affectionate with me. Several times a week. Sometimes even twice on Sundays." The priest paused, then said, "My son, those were extraordinary times. You both lived in fear for your lives. Human weakness under such conditions is understandable. If you are truly sorry, you are forgiven." The old man sighed with relief. "Thank you, Father. That lifts a great burden from my heart." Then he added, "One last question." "Yes?" said the priest. "Should I tell her the war is over?" A man went to visit his 85-year-old grandfather in the hospital. "How are you feeling, Grandpa?" he asked. "Just fine," the old man replied. "How's the food?" "Terrific. Wonderful menus." "And the nurses?" "Couldn't be better. Those young nurses really take good care of you." "What about sleeping?" the grandson asked. "Are you getting enough rest?" "Not a problem at all," Grandpa said. 9 hours every night. At 10 o'clock they bring me a cup of hot chocolate and a Viagra tablet. Then I'm out like a light." The grandson was shocked. He rushed to the nurse's station and demanded, "Why on earth are you giving my 85-year-old grandfather Viagra every night?" The nurse smiled and said, "Oh yes, we sure do. The hot chocolate helps him sleep, and the Viagra keeps him from rolling out of bed." A married couple in their early 60s was celebrating their 40th wedding anniversary in a quiet, romantic restaurant. Suddenly, a tiny, beautiful fairy appeared on their table. She smiled and said, "For being such a loving couple for all these years, I will grant each of you one wish." The wife didn't hesitate. "Oh, I wish to travel around the world with my wonderful husband." The fairy waved her wand, and 2 luxury tickets for a world cruise appeared on the table. The husband thought for a long moment. "Well, this is romantic," he said slowly. "But an opportunity like this may never come again." He took a deep breath. "I wish for a wife 30 years younger than me." The wife was stunned. The fairy looked disappointed. But a wish is a wish. The fairy waved her wand again, and the husband instantly became 92 years old. Moral of the story: men should remember, fairies are female. Working folks often ask retired people how we keep our days interesting. Well, here's one example. The other day, my wife Marilyn and I went downtown to do a little shopping. When we came back out, we saw a police officer writing a parking ticket on a car. I walked over and said politely, "Come on, officer. How about giving a senior citizen a little break?" He didn't say a word and just kept writing. So I muttered something under my breath. He looked up, frowned, and started writing another ticket, this one for worn-out tires. Marilyn chimed in with a few choice comments of her own. The officer calmly finished the second ticket, stuck it on the windshield, and started writing another one. This went on for about 20 minutes. The more we commented, the more tickets he wrote. Eventually, our bus showed up. So we climbed on, sat down, and rode home, laughing the whole way. Not our car. We just try to have a little fun each day now that we're retired. It's important at our age. We were all dressed up and ready for a dinner and theater night. Before leaving, we turned on a night light, covered our pet bird, and put the cat out in the backyard. We called a taxi. When it arrived, we opened the front door to leave, and the cat shot back into the house. We didn't want the cat inside because she always tries to bother the bird. My wife headed to the cab while I ran back in to catch the cat. Of course, the cat bolted upstairs, with me right behind her. While waiting in the taxi, My wife didn't want the driver to know the house would be empty all night. So she casually explained. He'll be out in a moment. He just went upstairs to say goodbye to my mother. A few minutes later, I finally climbed into the cab. Sorry I took so long, I said as we pulled away. That stubborn old thing was hiding under the bed. I had to poke her with a coat hanger to get her to come out. She tried to escape, so I grabbed her by the scruff of the neck. Then I had to wrap her in a blanket to keep her from scratching me. I hauled her downstairs and tossed her back into the yard. She'd better not make a mess in the vegetable patch this time. The silence in that taxi was absolutely deafening. When everyone on earth had passed away, they were all waiting to enter heaven. God appeared and made an announcement. I want all the men to form 2 lines. 1 line for the men who are the true heads of their household, and 1 line for the men who are dominated by their wives. All the women, please report to St. Peter. The women left. The men lined up. The line of men dominated by their wives stretched for miles. The line of men who were true heads of their households? Just 1 man. God looked at the long line and said, You should be ashamed. I created you to lead your homes and protect your families. Only one of you followed my plan. Learn from this man. God turned to the lone man and asked, How did you manage to be the only one standing here? The man shrugged and replied, My wife told me to stand here. A few minutes before Sunday service began, the congregation sat chatting quietly in their pews. Suddenly, Satan himself appeared at the front of the church. Panic erupted. People screamed. They bolted for the doors. They trampled over one another trying to escape. In seconds, the church was completely empty, except for one elderly man. He sat calmly in his pew, not moving an inch. Satan walked up to him and asked, Do you know who I am? The man replied, Sure do. Aren't you afraid of me? Satan asked. Nope. You realize I could kill you with a single word? Wouldn't doubt it. I could cause you unbearable misery for all eternity. I know. Satan stared at him, confused. And you're still not afraid? Nope. Finally, Satan asked, Why not? The old man smiled and said, I've been married to your sister for 48 years. After a long, exhausting day, a woman settled into her seat on the evening train. She closed her eyes and drifted off to sleep. As the train pulled out of the station, the man sitting beside her pulled out his phone and began talking, loudly. Hi sweetheart, it's Eric. Yes, I'm on the train. I know it's the 6:30 and not the 4:30. But the meeting ran late. No, not with that blonde from accounting. With the boss. Of course you're the only one for me. Cross my heart. And on he went. Sweet talk. Reassurances. Promises. 15 minutes later, the woman beside him was wide awake. She leaned over, smiled sweetly, and spoke clearly into his phone. Eric, darling. Turn that phone off and come back to bed. Eric hasn't used his cell phone in public since. 2 men were walking through the woods when they came across a huge, dark hole. Curious, one of them picked up a small rock and tossed it in. They waited. No sound. That must be a really deep hole, one said. Let's try a bigger rock. They found a much larger rock, carried it over, and dropped it in. They listened. Still nothing. Now they were really puzzled. Nearby, they spotted a heavy railroad tie lying in the brush. Grunting and groaning, they dragged it to the hole and shoved it in. Not a sound. Suddenly, a goat came flying out of the woods at full speed, ran past them, and leapt straight into the hole. The 2 men stood there, stunned. A moment later, an old farmer wandered out of the woods. Say, one man asked, have you lost a goat? We just saw one come running out of the woods and jump right into that hole. The farmer scratched his head and said, Nope, that couldn't have been my goat. My goat was chained to a railroad tie. A local charity noticed something unusual. They had never received a donation from the town's most successful lawyer. So the head of fundraising decided to give him a call. "Sir," the caller began politely, "our records show that with an annual income of over $200,000, you haven't donated a single dollar to charity. Wouldn't you like to give something back to the community?" The lawyer paused for a moment, then replied calmly, "Did your research also show that my mother is dying from a long illness? And her medical bills are more than she makes in a year?" The caller stumbled. No, sir," the lawyer continued. "Did it show that my brother is a disabled veteran, blind and confined to a wheelchair?" The caller started to apologize. "And did it show," the lawyer pressed on, "that my sister's husband was killed in a car accident, leaving her broke with 3 children to raise?" The charity representative was completely flustered. I had no idea," he said quietly. The lawyer finished. "Well then, if I don't give any money to them, why on earth would I give any to you?" A woman in the supermarket noticed an elderly grandfather shopping with his very badly behaved 3-year-old grandson. The little boy was screaming for candy in the candy aisle, cookies in the cookie aisle, and snacks everywhere else. But the grandpa stayed calm. In a steady, gentle voice, he kept saying, "Easy now, William, we'll be done soon. Hang in there, William, just a few more minutes. It's all right, William, we'll be home before you know it." At the checkout, the child started tossing items out of the cart. "Still calm," Grandpa said. "Relax, William. Don't get upset. 5 more minutes and we're on our way home." The woman was amazed. Outside in the parking lot, she approached him while he was loading groceries into the car. "I just wanted to say," she told him, "you were incredible in there. No matter how wild that little boy was, you never lost your cool. William is very lucky to have a grandfather like you." The old man smiled and said, "Thank you, ma'am. But I'm William. The boy's name is Kevin." A cat passed away after a long, happy life on a farm. When she arrived at heaven's gates, God welcomed her and said, "You are a good cat. Anything you want, just ask." The cat thought for a moment and said, "Well, I always slept on cold, hard floors. I would love a big, soft pillow." "Say no more," God replied. Poof! The cat now had the fluffiest pillow she had ever seen. A few days later, 6 mice were killed in a tragic accident and arrived at heaven together. God met them at the gates and asked what they would like. The mice said, "All our lives we had to run from cats, dogs, even broomsticks. If we could have little roller skates, we'd never have to run again." God smiled. Poof! 6 happy mice skating around heaven in style. About a week later, God stopped by to check on the cat. She was curled up on her pillow, sleeping like royalty. "Hello, my child," God said softly. "How are you enjoying heaven?" The cat stretched, purred, and said, "Oh, it's wonderful. The pillow is perfect. And those little meals on wheels you keep sending over are delicious." Outside their nursing home, 2 elderly ladies were relaxing and having a cigarette. Suddenly, it started to rain. One of them calmly reached into her purse, pulled out a condom, snipped off the tip, slipped it over her cigarette, and continued smoking like nothing happened. The other lady stared and asked, "What on earth is that?" Her friend replied, "A condom. This way, my cigarette doesn't get wet." "Where did you get it?" the first lady asked, amazed. "Any drugstore, dear." Next day, Grandma 1 makes her way to the local pharmacy. She walks up to the counter and proudly announces, "I'd like a box of condoms, please." The pharmacist, trying not to show shock, gently asks, "Of course, ma'am. What brand would you like?" She thinks for a moment and says, "Oh, it doesn't matter, son. As long as it fits a camel." The pharmacist hit the floor. A woman in a hot air balloon realizes she's lost, so she lowers her altitude and spots a man standing below. She calls down, "Excuse me. Can you help me? I promised a friend I'd meet him an hour ago, but I have no idea where I am." The man looks up and replies, "You're in a hot air balloon, hovering about 30 feet above the ground. You're between 40 and 41 degrees north latitude and between 59 and 60 degrees west longitude." The woman says, "You must be an engineer." "I am," he replies. "How did you know?" She says, "Because everything you told me is technically correct, but completely useless. I still have no clue where I am. You haven't helped me at all, and now I'm even later than before." The man smiles and says, "You must be in management." "I am," she replies. "How'd you guess?" He says, "Because you don't know where you are or where you're going. You got where you are because of a whole lot of hot air. You made a promise you have no idea how to keep, and now you expect the people below you to fix your problems. And somehow, when nothing changes, it ends up being my fault." On their wedding night, a blind woman and her husband were getting intimate for the first time. As she explored with her hands, she suddenly stopped and curiously asked, "Honey, what is this hanging down here?" The husband chuckled. "Those are my testicles, sweetheart." She thought for a moment and then asked, "So, are you gonna put them inside or not?" The husband laughed. "No, babe, they stay outside." She sighed and shook her head. "Listen, I am blind. Please don't take away my rights." My wife, Judy, had been after me for weeks to varnish the wooden toilet seat. I finally got around to doing it one afternoon while she was out. After finishing, I left to run an errand before she got home. A little later, Judy came in, got undressed to take a shower, and before stepping in, sat down on the toilet. A second later she discovered the problem. The not quite dry varnish had glued her firmly to the seat. I got home just in time to hear her yelling for help. We pushed, we pulled, nothing. She was stuck solid. At last, in desperation, I unbolted the entire toilet seat. Judy wrapped herself in a sheet, seat still attached, and I drove her to the emergency room. The doctor got her positioned so he could examine the situation. Just imagine the scene. Trying to ease the embarrassment, Judy said, "Well, doctor, I'll bet you've never seen anything like this before." The doctor smiled and said, "Actually, ma'am, I've seen plenty of them. I've just never seen one mounted and framed." Two rednecks are out hunting when they come across a massive hole in the ground. They stare at it, impressed by its size. The first hunter says, "Wow, that's some hole. Can't even see the bottom. I wonder how deep it is." The second hunter replies, "I don't know, let's throw something in and see how long it takes to hit bottom." The first hunter looks around and says, "There's an old gearbox over there. Let's throw that in." They haul it over, count to 3, and toss it in the hole. As they stand there listening for the sound of it hitting the bottom, they suddenly hear rustling behind them. They turn around to see a goat running full speed, charging right at the hole. Without missing a beat, the goat leaps headfirst into the hole. The two hunters stare at each other, then back into the hole, trying to figure out what just happened. An old farmer walks up, wiping his hands. "Say, fellas," he asks, "did you happen to see my goat around here?" The first hunter says, "Funny you should ask. Just a minute ago, a goat came flying out of the bushes, doing about 100 miles an hour, and jumped right into this hole." The farmer scratches his head and replies, "Well, that's impossible. I had him chained to that old gearbox." Jimmy and Jack were twins, but not identical, far from it. Jimmy was skinny, while Jack was built like a bodybuilder. As a result, Jack effortlessly attracted women everywhere he went, while poor Jimmy struggled. Even when women did approach him, usually because he was standing next to Jack, he found it hard to talk to them. Despite their differences, the two were best friends, and Jack always tried to help Jimmy, though with little success. One day, they decided to hit the beach. Jack knew that as soon as he walked onto the sand in his swimming trunks, women would flock to him, and hopefully, Jimmy would benefit from the overflow. But just as they were about to leave, something came up, and Jack had to handle some business first. "Head to the beach," Jack said to Jimmy. "I'll meet you there. But in the meantime, we need to give you a bit of an advantage. That skinny body is what's holding you back. We can't give you muscles, but we can make you look more macho. Get a potato and tuck it down your trunks. You'll look a lot more studly." Jimmy followed Jack's advice and set off. Later, Jack made his way to the beach and found his brother right away. The crowd was parted in a big circle around him, as if they were avoiding something unpleasant. At the center sat Jimmy, looking miserable. Jack approached him. "What's going on?" Jimmy sighed. "This is all your fault. I did what you said. I stuck the potato down my trunks, but as soon as I came out of the changing room, people started screaming and running away. You said this would attract the girls, but no one will come within 20 yards of me." Jack shook his head. "I'm not surprised. You were supposed to put the potato down the front of your trunks." In the dead of night, a bootneck is driving from Plymouth to London, and a para is driving from London to Plymouth. The roads are empty, and they collide head-on, both cars flying off in opposite directions. The bootneck, shaken but alive, climbs out of his car and looks around at the wreckage. He says to himself, "Man, I'm really lucky to be alive." The para does the same, surveying his destroyed car, and mutters, "I can't believe I survived this wreck." The bootneck, feeling philosophical, walks over to the para. "Hey man, I think this is a sign from God that we should put aside our differences and be friends instead of enemies." The para pauses, then nods. "You know what? You're absolutely right. We should be friends." Feeling a bit of camaraderie, the bootneck says, "Well, I'm going to see what else survived this wreck." He opens the boot of his car and pulls out an unopened bottle of Pusser's rum. "This," he declares, "is a sign from God that we should toast to our new friendship." The peregrine grabs the bottle and starts drinking. He downs almost half before handing it back to the bootneck. "That was good. Your turn." The bootneck screws the cap back on and says, "Nah, I think I'll wait for the cops to arrive." A man is sitting on a plane, ready for takeoff, when another man with a dog sits next to him. The dog sits between them, and the first man is curious. The second man notices and says, "Don't worry about Rover, he's a sniffer dog. The best there is. I'll show you once we're airborne." After the plane takes off and levels out, the handler turns to the man and says, "Watch this." He commands the dog, "Rover, search." The dog jumps down, walks along the aisle, and sits next to a woman for a few seconds before returning to its seat and placing one paw on the handler's arm. "Good boy," the handler says, then turns to the first man. "That woman is carrying marijuana, so I'll make a note of her seat number to hand over to the authorities when we land." "Wow, that's impressive," replies the first man. The handler sends Rover out again. The dog sniffs around, sits beside a man for a moment, then returns to the handler and places both paws on his arm. "That man is carrying cocaine," says the handler. "Noted his seat number as well." The first man is amazed. "This is incredible." The handler sends the dog out again. Rover moves up and down the aisle, sniffing at various passengers. Eventually, the dog sits next to someone, then runs back, jumps into the seat, and to the first man's shock, starts to poop everywhere. The first man is horrified and asks, "What's going on?" The handler, looking very nervous, says, "He just found a bomb." A young pastor sat in a restaurant, enjoying his lunch. As he ate, he opened a letter from his mother, which had arrived that morning. When he unfolded it, a $20 bill fluttered onto the table. "Thanks, Mom," he thought. "I really needed this right now." As he finished his meal, he noticed a beggar leaning against a lamppost outside. The man looked down on his luck, and the pastor felt a tug at his heart. He hesitated for a moment, then made a decision. Pulling the envelope back out, he crossed out the names and, in large letters, wrote, "Persevere." Without drawing attention to himself, he tucked the bill back inside, placed the envelope under his arm, and casually dropped it as he walked past the man. The beggar picked it up, read the message, and smiled. The next day, as the pastor sat down for another meal, he felt a tap on his shoulder. Turning, he saw the same man, grinning and holding out a thick wad of cash. Bewildered, the pastor asked, "What's this?" The man chuckled. "Your half of the winnings. Persevere came in first in the 4th race at the track yesterday, paid 30-1. Two couples decided to host a friendly dinner party one evening. During the evening, Jim accidentally dropped his napkin under the table. When he bent down to pick it up, he couldn't help but notice that Bob's wife, Sue, wasn't wearing any underwear under her dress. The shocking discovery left Jim flustered, and in his haste to sit back up, he bumped his head on the table, emerging red-faced and awkward. Later, while Jim was helping himself to drinks in the kitchen, Sue walked in and, with a sly smile, asked, "Did you like what you saw under the table?" Caught off guard, Jim hesitated but finally admitted, "Well, yes, I did." Sue leaned closer and whispered, "If you want it, it'll cost you $500. Jim was stunned but intrigued. After a brief internal debate, he agreed to her proposition. Sue suggested he come by her house Friday afternoon since Bob would be at work. When Friday rolled around, Jim arrived at Sue's house at 2 p.m. sharp. After handing her the agreed $500, they went to the bedroom, and the deal was done. Jim quickly dressed, thanked Sue, and left. That evening, when Bob came home, he casually asked Sue, "Did Jim stop by the house today?" Sue's heart skipped a beat, but she replied, "Why, yes, he did drop by for a little while." Bob nodded and asked, "Did he give you $500? Sue, trying to stay composed, answered, "Well, yes, he did." Bob grinned and said, "Perfect. He stopped by the office this morning and borrowed $500 from me. He promised he'd drop it off at the house today. Glad he kept his word. Now that is what you call playing the long game." An elderly gentleman walked into the bank and approached the teller. He handed over his bank card and said, "I'd like to withdraw $20, please." The teller glanced at him and replied, "Sir, for withdrawals under $200, please use the ATM." The old man frowned. "Why is that?" he asked. Irritated, the teller slid the card back to him. "Those are the rules, sir. If you don't need anything else, please step aside. There are other customers waiting." The man remained silent for a moment. Then, he handed the card back and said, "All right, I'd like to withdraw all my money instead." The teller sighed but proceeded to check the account. A moment later, her expression changed. She leaned in and whispered, "Sir, you have $500,000 in your account. The bank doesn't keep that much cash on hand. You'll need to schedule an appointment." The old man nodded. "I see. How much can I withdraw immediately?" $5,000 is the maximum per transaction." The gentleman smiled. "All right, I'll take $5,000 then." Now speaking much more politely, the teller counted out the cash and handed it to him with a warm smile. The old man took $20, placed it in his wallet, and slid the remaining $4,980 back across the counter. "Please deposit this back into my account." An Englishman, Scotsman, and an Irishman are all prison inmates, but have hatched an escape plan. The escape plan goes well and the three of them are outside the prison walls and running away to freedom. About 15 minutes after their escape, they realize that the prison guards are catching up to them, and they have to hide. The Englishman spots 3 empty sacks lying at the side of the road and shouts, "Hide in these sacks, fellas, we'll never outrun them." So all 3 men climb into the sacks and wait for the prison guards to go past. The prison guards eventually catch up and, sure enough, are immediately suspicious of the 3 seemingly full sacks lying at the side of the road. One of the prison guards says to his friend, "Those sacks look a bit suspicious. Give them a good kick, Dave, and see what's in them." Now the Englishman has heard all of this and immediately devises a plan. The prison guard gives the first sack a kick and the Englishman shouts, Woof, woof. The prison guard turns to his coworkers and says, "This is just a sack of puppies, nothing to see here." The Scotsman has twigged as to what the Englishman has done, so when the prison guard kicks his sack, he shouts, "Meow, meow." Again, the prison guard shouts, "This is just a sack of kittens, nothing to see here." Now the Irishman has heard all of this going on, and he knows exactly what he has to do. The prison guard kicks the third and final sack and the Irishman shouts, "Potatoes!"